There was one thing
That's about it.
I think beyond anything else that everybody wanted to know. And it was going to be, all right, well, what changes are going to happen? Woods, as you like to say, if
nothing changes.
If nothing changes,
nothing
changes. So where are you going to start those changes? And, of course, that was one of the questions asked of A.J. Preller yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, obviously every year is different with the roster, so I think we'll get into that here over the next couple of weeks, free agency trades, everything from that standpoint. I think we'll look back and, hey, like, I think some of the things that me and Bob already have talked about, how well did we handle the expectations, talk about, our ability to perform when it mattered most, kind of high leverage situations. I think, again, like looking from an offensive standpoint, we, as the year got on, we got better, but ability to handle right-hand pitching, creating a deep and talented bullpen and a deep pitching staff. Those are all different things that we'll continue to talk about. And I think things that are going to have to be better, like going forward. But I think the flip of it is we've got some really talented players here, and we've got a core group of players that have done a ton of winning. Both here in San Diego and on other teams. I think it's a good place to start, like moving forward. But I think we're in that process now over the course of the next few weeks and months where we'll evaluate our team, kind of look at some of those things I just mentioned and say, all right, how do we get that going better from a roster standpoint, from a, performance standpoint. I think if we can nail a few of those things, we're going to be in a pretty good spot next year.
All right. I'm a fair-minded person. Wouldn't you say that, Woods?
Very.
Probably more than most.
Yeah, way more than me.
So I think I understand that they're not going to have every answer
today
to everything they're going to do. We're 3 days into the offseason, and I would hope that there would be a methodical analysis of things that you can do better. And I was not expecting a comprehensive overall, 97-point plan on ways we're changing our personnel and infrastructure. And I knew, we weren't going to find out what moves they were going to make on the roster. I totally understand that. I'm not an unreasonable person. But if I was advising A.J. Preller, I would have told him, come into this Zoom with at least one very specific thing that you want to change. Not he went through a list of things the Padres need to improve on. Guess what? Every team has a list of things. Hitting against right-handed pitching. Fine. Every team can go through at the end of the season and find a list of things that you need to improve on. That's not what we were all interested in hearing about. We wanted to know about how you go about making those improvements. The decision-making, the culture, the processes that you go through that have been called into question pretty strongly over the last, month in pieces that have been written, from comments inside and outside the organization about the way you do things. And I would have come at least with something very specific and introspective about how we were going to really attack some of the things that people have said that we are not doing well in our organization. And that's what I didn't hear yesterday that I felt disappointed in the most. I heard
what would that answer have sounded
I heard nothing but we're going to continue to look into ways that we can get better.
Right.
Guess what team also does that? Every other team.
The Royals.
Every other team at the end of a season will look into ways that they can be better.
Now, the A's may not, but I think every 29 of the other teams may do that.
That's not an answer. If you're not, that's the baseline. That's the baseline for being a sports team. Oh, good. You're going to look into ways you can be better this offseason. Fantastic. I am well rested and assured that we're on the right path now. Oh, last year you thought, man, we don't want to look into ways we can be better, but this year you're going to do that. No, you've done that every year. Every team does that every year. I was hoping there might be something a little more specific. Just you've been thinking about over the last month after hearing some of these things.
We're going to retool our hitting lab. We're going to invest in technology. Yes. We are going to do this. We are going to do that, whatever it may be.
I mean, they are truly running it back.
They are literally just running it back.
We talked about it over the last couple of weeks as a possibility, but we kind of really all felt like something would change.
And it still may. It still may.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically said, he's not going to comment on – he's not going to comment on staff and things right now, contracts that are up and contracts that are, whatever.
And that's very typical of A.J. Preller.
Right.
It's always been the way.
And I understand that. That's okay. But I thought the closest he came to acknowledging the possibility of a change was when he discussed hiring a general manager. And I think a lot of people rolled their eyes and go, well, I mean, if he's working for AJ, what change is that? If you're just hiring someone who then reports to you and you make the final decisions, is that really going to change anything? I would argue that if you make a smart hire of a general manager under AJ Preller, even if it's still ultimately AJ's call and AJ's decision, it's not as though AJ makes every bad decision every single time. He's made a lot of good decisions while he's been general
100%.
manager of the Padres as well.
No question.
But if you hire someone who might be a better interface with the clubhouse, that puts a layer between you and Bob Melvin, that handles the communications a little bit better, that gives a little better press conference perhaps than you do, and you don't have to do it quite as often and always be the mouthpiece for the organization, that could legitimately be something that could benefit the San Diego Padres. And he did acknowledge that is something that has been talked about and discussed. I would say do more discussing of that, and then actually go ahead and do that. Go ahead.
It's been on the table that we've talked about, and throughout different points last offseason and this year. And again, I think the biggest thing for myself, conversations I'll have with continue to have with Peter. I think we just want to have as good a team, as good a leadership team as you can have, and I feel good about the current group. But I also always going to be open if we can add somebody in place that somebody brings different experiences to the team that can help us perform better on the field and give us some different perspectives. I'll always be open to that, and I think that's something, again, as we get into the off season, adding to or having some different skill sets and people that contribute. I think we'll continue having those conversations as we get into the next couple of months.
All right, I like that, and I'm not talking about hiring an out of the box rugby coach from New Zealand. I'm talking about bringing in a solid someone from a different organization. Not promoting one of the people who's always, and I understand that probably would feel unfair to
I am the new GM
to other people. I'm talking about bringing someone with a different perspective who's worked in a successful, another franchise that's done things well recently, that is due for a promotion, that you can put in maybe as a general manager under AJ Preller. I like that idea.
I think it would be awesome.
Yeah.
And again, another voice in the room, somebody that's done it, somebody that can challenge, AJ, check AJ. Everyone needs to be checked. Everybody's got to be checked from time to time. No one can just run rampant and do whatever they want. Everybody's got somebody to report to. Even me. I have to report to Adam, and I get my hand slapped by him all the time for good reason. All right, but without him, where would I be without him? Nude in here on this stream right now, right? Bottle of whiskey next to me, like edibles, the whole bit. Like, that's where I'd be without a boss. So I think it's a good thing. And I think it would speak volumes about your commitment to winning. I really do. I think if you say, you know what? Yeah, let me focus on this. And let me have somebody else to, like you said, be the interface, do the press conferences, come on the show, whatever it may be, and answer questions as honestly as they can. But I understand, too, this is not an indictment on A.J. Preller or really any GM, because if you're a GM, day 3 of the offseason, you don't come on, hold up your cards and turn them around to the camera and go, look what we got. These are our aces in the hole. This is what we're going to do. I understand being guarded. I understand being vague. It's kind of part of the gig. It's part of the gig. Yeah. So there's not a general manager around that's going to give you everything you want.
No. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses, as does AJ. Strengths, talent evaluation, working hard, the scouting department he's put together. Weaknesses, communication skills. You can hear that when he's at a press conference. You can hear that when he does radio interviews. And I'm sure that players and coaches, hear it as well. It's not that he's unlikable. I like AJ. But his communication skills, he's he's sometimes hard to, he's muddled and hard to understand a bit when he's trying to communicate something. It's not his strong point. I don't think you have to be a great communicator to be a general manager. Now, if he was the manager of the team, you go, this is the wrong role for you. This is not the right thing for you.
Right spot.
A GM doesn't necessarily, a lot of GMs, you don't hear from much at all.
Correct.
And maybe that's the kind of GM that AJ really needs to be. But when you're both president of baseball operations and GM,
You got to be out there.
and by the way, you run your organization where you don't really want other people speaking for the team,
That's absolutely
which is
true.
fine. That's okay, but that leaves it all on you. Then you kind of have to be a better communicator than what AJ has shown himself to be. But there are other ways to do this. Like I said, you could hire a GM who is a good communicator and an interface. You could perhaps, push forward other members of your organization that do that well while you focus on the things that you do well. I don't come up with the bits for the show, generally. You know why? I'm not that good at it.
It's true.
Woods is much better at it, so he focuses on that portion of the show, and we try to do the things that we do well to make the team successful. Play to our strengths.
Play to our strengths.
And that's what I think AJ really going forward should play to his strengths a little bit more, and take off from his plate some of the things where he's not as strong.
Yeah, it's the umpire argument that I like to make all the time too. Umpires, if they got upset about robot umps, they would think that they were doing something wrong. If I was a professional umpire, I would say, please, God, take this off my plate. Take the worst part of my job. Everybody has a job. There are things in everyone's job that you absolutely loathe doing, but it's a part of the gig. The rest of it's pretty good, but you have to do X. If you're a home plate umpire and they're like, hey, we're going to bring in robots, challenge system, the whole bit. If I'm an umpire, I'm like, good. That way I don't have Skip Schumacher screaming at me. I don't have Dave Roberts pouting at me. I don't have Bob Melvin looking at me like I'm an idiot.
Yeah, your
it's
pay
not
is
on
going to
me,
remain the
bud.
same. We're just going to take that off.
Take that off your plate.
I think
Done.
we all have a little bit of that insecurity that if we admit that we're not good at a part of our job, then people start to wonder, well, why do we need that person to begin with? Hey, if umpires aren't
Sure.
Hey, if we can do robot umpires, maybe we can fully make fully robot umpires,
Sure.
and we don't need them at all. And then you're out of a job. But you got to be confident in what you do well, and you got to be confident in acknowledging when you don't do something well.
That's exactly right. One more before we go, Paulie. Let's do number 4. How do you address the depth with a lower payroll, allegedly, in 2024?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's, again, I think we always try, from the team, it's you've got to have really, if you're going to win a World Series, you need to have, supremely talented players and a lot of them. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything different from a team build standpoint. We didn't build the team saying, hey, we're looking to have, 4 superstar players and, that's it. I mean, I think from our standpoint, we look up and, you look at a Ha-Sung Kim, what he did, guys like Cronenworth and Grisham, guys like Campusano and his development, Gary Sanchez. I think 1 through 9, there's we feel like we have a good team, and there's a lot of different ways to build it. There's teams playing in October right now that, if you look at production from players 9 through 13 on their roster, is very minimal, but the top 4 or 5 guys perform very well. There's other teams that 1 through 13 have a pretty good equal balance and blend. So there's no one way to get there. Every year is a little bit different. I think for us, this year we didn't get there, and I think next year is going to be a different year, different team, different players. I think we feel confident that from a farm system standpoint, we've got, a group that now getting to AA in the upper levels that is going to be able to help us and provide some more of that depth component. But yeah, I think honestly, I think it's no different every year when we go into the off season, building a quality roster with a lot of different answers and possibilities and options for Bob and his staff. And that involves depth and also some impactful players that perform at their highest level.
No, I'll tell you what, man. The playoffs so far, the first day I was excited because it was the playoffs. Yesterday's games were meh. Everybody swept, and we're going to get into the Major League Baseball playoffs. So there's no baseball today, no baseball tomorrow. Really well done, Rob, the way you scheduled that. Really, really solid. Now you have to go up against college football and the NFL. It's smart, really, really smart. So now you have 2 full days without baseball. Have you guys been watching the relief corps of pretty much every team that moved on? staggering.
Pretty damn good.
Staggering. Like the arms, I'm salivating over some of the guys in the D-backs bullpen, some of the guys in the Phillies bullpen. And you look at that and go, where's that? Where's even close to that? That's why I'm in Pity City. I just can't wrap my head around that running it back is going to be the best thing for this team.